God knows everything about who you are, and for me, it's what you're putting your focus and your mind on is what becomes your God. And if you're doing that on your career and your abilities and not the things of God, then that's what you're gonna put first in your life.
We all have those moments where we need a little encouragement to get through our day. Someone to remind us that we are not alone. Find peace. Embrace joy. Seek God daily. Welcome to Jesus Calling Stories of Faith. Our guest is Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter Zach Williams. Growing up, Zach had a loving, supportive family atmosphere that was grounded in faith. But when Zach became a full-time touring musician, he was pulled into a lifestyle of addiction that threatened to ruin all that was important to him.
I grew up in a small town in Northeast Arkansas, and I have an amazing mom and dad that at a very early age, taught me what it was to just put my faith and my trust in Jesus. And I had it not been for just their relationship with Christ and the example that they were to myself and to others, I wouldn't, I don't think I'd have the opportunities that I have today. I certainly don't think I would be where I'm at. Church was very much a big part of our life whenever I was growing up. My dad and my mom were both part of music ministry. My dad led worship, my mom sang at church. Had a very good support system around me and just a group of people that always told me I could do and be anything that I wanted to be. Growing up, I never had an interest in playing music. Sports were what I always wanted to do. It was my dream to get a scholarship and kind of move away from this small town. Unfortunately, around 15, 16 years old, I got involved in drugs and alcohol and started making a lot of bad decisions, and I started kind of drifting away from everything that my parents had taught me. As I got older, I kind of started running from everything that I'd been taught, and by my senior year, I ended up with, a Division I basketball scholarship offer, but I lost that because I got involved in drugs and ended up getting myself in trouble. So I had to drop out of high school my senior year. Ended up working for my dad's construction company for a year. And then a year later, I walked on to a junior college. I made the team. I got a full scholarship. I moved 3 hours away from home, and then I found myself pretty much right back into the same, things that I was struggling with, whenever I was in high school. And my freshman year, we were in a basketball practice, and I was walking through some plays, and I ended up jumping up to dunk one, and I landed on a guy's foot, and I tore 5 ligaments in my ankle. And I just thought, man, what am I supposed to do now? This is everything I've ever wanted to do, and here we are, coming to school to play basketball, and I can't even play basketball anymore. And so my freshman year, I stayed in my apartment while most of the guys traveled on, the bus and played all these games, and I was sitting around. And I ended up teaching myself how to play my roommate's guitar, and I just fell in love with this idea that, I could start maybe writing these songs and tell these stories and these seasons of life that I was going through. And I remember just the first time that I ever picked up a guitar, just feeling this, I was really drawn to this. And the bad thing is when I started playing music, I started to kind of create this new persona of this guy that I was going to be and this person. And I felt like if I'm going to play music and I'm going to be a rock star, then I've got to embrace this lifestyle and this look and everything that goes along with it. And so that took me down some pretty dark roads. And I moved back home from college, and I was playing music, and I was, honestly playing in any bar or any garage or party that I could go to that anybody would listen to my songs at. And I was working for my dad's construction company, and I remember thinking, as long as I can, get up and go to work every day and, do my job, then the drugs and the alcohol shouldn't be a problem. And I got pretty good at like functioning, on drugs every day. And so that was something that for a good part of my life, I got up and I would use drugs every day just to get through the day and do my job. And as that continued to progress, my music career was kind of starting to take off, and I was living this kind of double life. And I remember thinking, like, here I am, finally in a place where I'm playing music all the time and doing all these things that I thought I wanted to have, but I'm still not happy. I met my wife when I was about 30 years old, and when we met, she had 2 small kids, and soon after we got married, we had a little boy together. And about that time, I was traveling to Europe to tour, and I went over to Europe and toured for a month. I came back home, and went back to work, and that was kind of rough because you've created this person that you are, and everybody thinks you're doing all these awesome things, and honestly, you're just working a construction job to pay the bills so you can go out and party and act like a rock star. And it was depressing. Here I was thinking that I should be happy for all the things that I have, but nothing I was doing was filling this hole in my life. And a year or two went by, and me and my wife continued to just struggle with our marriage and the things that I was doing. And it got to a point where she was pregnant with our daughter, and I remember I was getting ready to leave to go to Europe for the second time for a month, and she had kind of come to me and just kind of given me an ultimatum, and basically was like, if your drug use, if your alcohol use, if the lifestyle continues, like, I don't think that I can continue to be your wife and support what you're doing. I'm just, there's got to be some changes. And I remember one night while we were on tour, just kind of having this come to Jesus moment where I was like, God, if you would just show me who you are, if you'll just give me something to just prove to me that you're real, then I'm done with this and I'll never look back. And the very next day we were traveling on a bus in Europe, and I had headphones on, I was reading a book. We were traveling about 8 hours, and our bus driver was scanning stations. And I remember he was scanning a radio station, and it stopped on Redeemed by Big Daddy Weave. And I remember hearing that song and just immediately thinking, wow, like, what are the odds? And I just remember going to my hotel room and listening to that song over and over. And for me, it was just like God, showing himself to me. And I called my wife and I told her that, I was going to quit my band and come home, and we were going to start going to church. And honestly, that was the turning point for me. That was like, I never looked back from that point. I remember coming home, just asking my wife and kids for forgiveness. I remember them leaving to go to school a few days later, and I found a spot in my bedroom floor in my closet and just asked God to come in and live in my heart. And honestly, I didn't even know what I was praying at the time. I remember thinking like, I don't know what to pray or what to do, but like, I can't live this life anymore. I don't want to be this person I've been. And just instantly, I remember feeling like for the first time I could breathe. And then I took a break from music, and we just started working on our relationship with each other and with God. And 6 months later, I kind of found this new passion. I started writing some music that felt faith-based. And I remember my wife invited me to go to a prison with her and share some of these songs. And for me, that was like the first time that God had really spoke to me and said, this is the songs, these are the people, these are the places, this is the music that I have for you to write. And that was kind of it for me. That was like the turning point in my life where I realized like God's got a special calling on my life for this music, and this is what I want to do with it. And the very first time I remember standing on stage and leading worship, it was just honestly the first time that I ever felt, comfortable in my own skin. It was the first time I felt like, okay, I don't have to be this guy that I created to be. I can be who I was made to be and stand on this stage and just sing. And it's not a show. It's not about me. It's not about anything. It's just about this relationship that I have in this moment with God. Honestly, God had been preparing me to that from 20 years ago when I first started playing music. Like he was giving me this story and giving me these things to walk through and these trials and these things to go through in life, only to stand on the other side of it and tell people about his goodness. And so For me, it's just an honor and a privilege every time that I get to share a story or do an interview or sing a song. I feel like that's what he made me to do. There are so many people with the same story, just like me, that struggle with the exact same things. And to be able to tell them, it's all right to struggle. It's all right to be that. Like God God knew who you were when he made you. Like he sent his son to die for those things. And there's freedom in knowing that you don't have to have it together and that you can fail. And then also just to hear people share a story with me and be like, hey man, I heard your song, Fear's a Liar, and it saved my life, or it's totally changed, this, or it helped me through this season. When you get to hear a story like that, it's better than, it's better than any award you're going to get or any kind of recognition. You just know that God heard that prayer and he used that song the way you hoped he would, and that's what keeps us on the road. It's what keeps us doing and keeps us writing these songs.
We'll be right back to hear how, in a surprising twist, Zach found himself sharing the stage with the legendary Dolly Parton, right after this brief message from Jesus Calling. Did you know that Sarah Young, the author of Jesus Calling, prays for her readers each day? In that spirit, we want to extend the Jesus Calling prayer community out to you in a more personal way. Each Tuesday morning, you can dial into the Jesus Calling weekly prayer call, where the team from Jesus Calling and special guests will minister to us during a 10-minute call to reflect on that day's passage from Jesus Calling, read scripture references, and pray together for each other and our world. Prayer call times are 8 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Central, 6 a.m. Mountain, and 5 a.m. Pacific, and are for U.S. only. For more information on the Jesus Calling weekly prayer call or to submit prayer requests, please visit jesuscalling.com/prayer-call. Zach's new lease on life inspired him to write songs about his experiences, which he included on his latest album, Rescue Story.
The songs on this album really have just been a reflection of, the last 20 years of my life since I started playing music, and the things that God's allowed me to walk through and the stories that he's allowed me to tell. So there was a lot of things that I missed, in those moments that now I'm looking back and realizing, hey, he was there working all this out even when I didn't see him. We had a demo and we sent it out and had a lady sing on it, and we got the demo back, and I was talking to my producer, and when we heard the demo, I remember thinking the girl that was on it kind of had this Dolly Parton kind of sound, and I turned to my producer and I was like, it'd be really cool, if we could get Dolly Parton to sing on this song. And we kind of laughed about it a little bit, and about a month later, somebody at our record label told us that they had reached out and she had agreed to listen to the song. And I just remember thinking, wow, that's awesome, but we need to be prayed up for this, because I don't know if she's gonna want to do it. But it was really cool. When the day we met in the studio, her manager told me that she had listened to the song and got about halfway through the first chorus and took her headphones off and was like, I don't know who Zach Williams is, but I want to sing on this song. And it was all right with me that she didn't know who I was, that the fact that she wanted to be a part of it. But honestly, she was such a joy to work with. Now the fact that she's asked me to be a part of this CMA Awards is such a huge opportunity. But yeah, it's hard to believe, but that's the thing. Like, God has been doing some pretty amazing things in my life over the last few years that's been hard to believe too. Worship me only. Whatever occupies your mind the most becomes your God. Worries, if indulged, develop into idols. Anxiety gains a life of its own, parasitically infesting your mind. Break free from this bondage by affirming your trust in me and refreshing yourself in my presence. What goes on in your mind is invisible, undetectable to other people, but I read your thoughts continually, searching for evidence of trust in me. I rejoice when your mind turns toward me. Guard your thoughts diligently. Good thought choices will keep you close to me. It wasn't honestly until I gave my life to the Lord and I just accepted, who I am in Christ, that I was able to see who I was before I met Christ and see that those things were all my fault, and own up to them, be a man about it, but also see who God's created me to be in Him. And I think for me, once I realized like I'd been trying to fill a hole in my life that only God could fill, that was the only thing that like really, allowed me to move on in my life and like not need those things anymore. It was like, okay, all these things that I had in my life that I thought were going to make me happy didn't make me happy. The only thing that's made me happy has been putting God in those places.
To find out more about Zach's latest album, Rescue Story, visit ZachWilliamsMusic.com. Next time on Jesus Calling Stories of Faith, we talk with retired Air Force Colonel Carlisle Smitty Harris. Colonel Harris survived 8 years as a POW at the infamous Hanoi Hilton prison during the Vietnam War. While there, Smitty learned the tap code, a World War II method of communicating through tapping on a common water pipe. Through teaching this code to others, the prisoners all began to communicate about their shared love of God and country, which helped them get through some of their darkest days.
As time went by, our communication became so fast and so good, and we were interested in so many things between each other, and trying to find out information. We found out all about the lives of all the people around us, their kids, what aircraft they flew, or what carrier they were on. Just a lot of information about each other. But we also found out a lot of our beliefs. We talked about God, religion, and how important it was, especially now.
Thank you for watching Jesus Calling Stories of Faith. To learn more about how to keep up with our shows bi-monthly and to listen to our weekly podcast, please visit youtube.com/JesusCallingBook to view and hear previous episodes, and to watch a short informational video about how to access all things Jesus Calling on audio and video formats. Plus, learn how to subscribe to our podcast and video channels. Your subscription helps get the word out to more people who will benefit from these inspirational stories of faith.